There was supposed to be a crested gecko in my hand, but she died. Her story, although a bit short, is pretty interesting, and there was a lot of build up to it because this was the first reptile I was taking in like 4 years, a very long time. My recent videos have been building up to this. I need to pay the IRS a little bit of money, and so I was like, what do? I guess I'll do what everyone's been telling me to do, go back to reptiles. So I was like, all right. And I immediately got swarmed with a lot of people that wanted to send animals. Unfortunately, in hindsight, we now know the videos didn't work, which is how I fund the reptiles, so I canceled them all. However, I did get 5 whole animals, including this crested gecko, who died instantly. 3 hours into the drive, we got a flat tire, and then we got stranded for a day, and then the tire shop messed up my car. That's in the last 2 videos if you want to see all that. I was not planning on vlogging any of this trip. All I was gonna do was pick up the animals and then come back and make reptile videos in the style of my restoring a blind leopard gecko's vision video. While driving down, I got the flat tire and I wasn't gonna film it because I, in this time, was dead set on going back to a reptile channel. I had unlisted and privated all of my other videos. It was just reptile stuff, and I was not gonna film getting a flat tire vlog, but Ethan was like, you have to film this. And I was like, I'm not filming this. And he was like, you have to film this. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll film it. I'll pull out my camera. I wasn't gonna use the footage for anything. Spoiler, I used it to produce 2 entire videos. The trip was supposed to be really fast. We were gonna drive down and then the next day, drive straight back up. But anyway, I accidentally got 2 vlogs out of it, and then we made it to our friend's house in Florida. He picked up the crested gecko on our behalf since we were not there the day we were supposed to. He doesn't know stuff about reptiles, so he was more so just like, here it is, like, is this what crested geckos are supposed to look like? And we were like, no, is this gecko even alive? It was alive. The owner was perfectly fine, the setup was perfectly fine. However, the crested gecko was left with another family member for a period of time, and she started looking bad. I don't know exactly what looked bad about her, but she was bad enough that she needed to go to the exotic veterinarian where the previous owner took her. Now what I do, or what I used to do as the reptile guy, was nothing particularly special. When it came to rehabilitating animals, I simply had more resources. That being essentially no budget on how much we could spend on animals because my videos were popping off back in the day. I could drop $1,000, $5,000, $20,000 if need be on animals, as well as it was my full-time job to produce content and work with the animals, as well as I had a whole group of people working with me. Literally, they would come to my house every morning at 9 a.m. and we would all work on reptiles. That was what set us apart from an individual owner that maybe can't do much for their reptile. So basically, we don't have any special medications or magic formulas to save the animals. What we did have was just an excessive amount of time and money, which oftentimes is all the animal needs. Now for this crested gecko, the owner was also willing to invest that time and money. In fact, he spent, I believe, around $1,000 on this crested gecko just medically, not enclosure, not food, purely for vet bills and medicine before we got to the gecko. The diagnosis by the vet was essentially low calcium. They were like, she has a calcium deficiency, but it's okay, we know how to fix it. We just spay her. So they did surgery on the crested gecko. I have a shot of her sutures. The goal was basically to reduce her consumption of calcium because eggs require calcium to grow. That's what the vet landed on. So she got spayed. And they did surgery on a little crested gecko. It's like the throwback to surgery on a grape. And unfortunately, she was not recovering well. So when I got to the gecko in Florida, I was like, this is quite ironic, because this is kind of like a situation that I covered in a video called like bearded dragon yellow fungus. And the premise of this video was talking about how I oftentimes tried to save animals that shouldn't have been saved. I should have just euthanized them right off the bat, and that video breaks down exactly how I came to that conclusion. And I was like, wow, I guess it's my first time I have to actually implement this new mindset I have. That being that it's sometimes the better decision to end the animal's life as quickly as possible versus drag it out in hopes of appeasing the previous owner. I am not a vet. However, I have vets that I trust and like to get the second opinion from before making any drastic decisions. Also, they're gonna wanna check out the animal before they euthanize it anyway. So while in Florida, I immediately set up an appointment for when we get back to North Carolina the next day. But in the meantime, before I was able to do that, because it was nighttime and her meds were actually due because we were delayed for a day, and so she didn't get her medications the entire day, that meant that we were super tired on this drive. we get into Florida and immediately it's like, okay, we need to do all these medications she has. It's like 3 or 4 medications. I recognize most of them, but there's one that, I mean, I knew what it was. It was a thyroid medication, but I had never heard of, I've never given thyroid meds to a reptile. And I also I didn't understand what that had to do with calcium, but I didn't want to go against the prescriptions of an animal, but I just couldn't get like I was sitting there looking at this thyroid bottle and I was like, I don't know if I can get myself to put this pill in this crested gecko. They're so big. I'm so confused how this is relevant. I ended up going with my gut and doing all the other meds except for the thyroid. Like, something doesn't seem right here. Next day, it turns out it wasn't the crested gecko's medication. It was the owner's thyroid medication. He accidentally put it in the bag, and then I had the greatest sense of relief of like, I am so glad. I almost did it, but I'm so glad I didn't stick this pill down this crested gecko because it probably would have killed her. We did the other meds. It was the most pitiful situation ever. I dug through what else was in the bag. There was critical care, which is a liquid food supplement. The next day, she gets meds again. We picked up a second reptile the second day, but I will come back to that. We packed up the car. We drove back to NC. She got her meds again that night. And then it was the next morning that it was her appointment. And this night, I was like, what are we even doing? Like, why are we even trying to pry this animal's mouth open while we couldn't even tell if she was breathing? Like, we'd look at her and just wait for our breath. I've never seen a human die like up close, but watching a reptile die up close and in person can often be kind of confusing. Like, say you have a snake in your hands and the snake dies while you're handling it. It's you can't really tell immediately. You're like, is it dead or is it just asleep? They don't have eyelids. It's not like they're gonna close their eyes or something. And she survived the second night, and then the next morning she was dead. And that morning was the vet visit. So at that point, I was pretty sure we were just gonna end up euthanizing her. I did have another reptile I was taking to the vet that same day, so I got to ask them, like, what would you have done? Have you ever heard of this? But the feedback I got was, that's not how we would have handled it. Insinuating that they wouldn't have spayed a crested gecko for a calcium deficiency, because it looks like she didn't actually succumb to the calcium deficiency. She succumbed to not being able to recover from the surgery she was given. Who brings us to the second animal we picked up in Florida. Not many people watched the bearded dragon videos, but it's featuring a beardie named Tui, who we picked up from Sarasota, Florida. He was like an extra couple hours south. Luckily, the owner was able to reschedule since we were scheduled for the day that our tire had the issue. It was a college student. She was just going to, I don't know, college and couldn't bring her bearded dragon. He was super healthy. I was very glad to see the contrast. It made me feel a little bit better from this horrific crested gecko to a nice, happy, healthy bearded dragon. He was in a nice 4x2 enclosure, and this was one of the reasons we drove to Florida, because she not only was willing to pay a rehome fee, which helps me cover things like these vet bills. It's kind of like a little it's like socialism where it's like, oh, well, the healthy beardie didn't need a vet visit, but the healthy beardie's owner pays for the sick animal vet visit. So that's kind of just how it works. We have the responsible people pay more in fees to help save the irresponsible people's animals. The crested gecko owner wasn't irresponsible, but it's just as a general example. We accept as much money as we can through rehoming fees and free supplies and free resources so that we can then put them towards the dying animals. So the bearded dragon owner paid $100 plus gave us the supplies, which was really helpful because I was able to make those beardie videos as well as use that $100 towards the leopard gecko, which is the blind leopard gecko that is still blind, but we'll get to him in a minute. It was so interesting. It had just been so long since I got the reptile pickup experience, and it was exactly how it used to be. We pull up to the person's house, all the supplies is outside, the owner is holding their animal for the last time. It's like a little bit emotional for them. It was like, wow, like this is such a weird deja vu from the old days. It was so interesting. I actually appreciated getting to do it because I was like, man, I never thought I'd be doing this again. And I kind of got to do it like one last time, one final face-to-face, rehome your reptile. I'll find a good new owner. We loaded up the vehicle and off we were back up to our friend's house. And then the next day is when we came back to NC. The bearded dragon has been great ever since. He just chills in my house. He sits around, he likes food, and he likes basking. I don't really know what else to say about him, but yeah, I mean, he's doing well. I still gotta find an owner for him. If you do want to be the owner, you can contact me and maybe you'll be the one. So at the time of the Florida trip, I had posted 2 or 3 reptile videos, and they absolutely did not perform the way I expected. The thing is, so when we got the flat tire and we were sitting on the side of the road, I was stressed out, but not at all about the trip or the tire. All I was stressed out about was like, I am not getting enough views. Like that's all, I just could not shake it from my head. That was why I had the urgency to go down to Florida, because I was like, what am I doing with this channel? What is happening next? I truly have no idea. It's like all me and Ethan talked about was like, how do we save this goddamn channel? He didn't think the reptile idea was a very good one, but he was happy to help me out and go along with it. And so while we were on this trip, I was getting animals shipped in, and the first was this leopard gecko. I think his name is Ash, and he came from California. And I was like, wow, another classic experience. So the shipping company I normally use actually switched to red boxes. And I was like, wow, I can't do a red box. So I special ordered in some green boxes so that they fit the old theme of the green boxes. I at least had to keep that going. And within that box was this leopard gecko. I am doing a reptile tour right now. This is really weird. I've kept about 80 species of reptiles, and my top 3 that I had the most fun keeping: abronias, false water cobras, and leopard geckos. I don't know why, I just really like leopard geckos. He is much like the bearded dragon in the sense that he's very healthy and came from a great owner. In fact, I got a note from this owner and I was like, wow, this is just like the old days where people ship in a box and they send a heartfelt letter about their animal. I'm like, this is so interesting. What made me feel really weird about it was the moment I started back up the reptile thing, I got flooded with people wanting to send animals. And I was like, damn, like imagine all of the animals over the past 4 years that people wanted to send but couldn't. And then all of a sudden, the moment I open it back up, it's just like inbox full. Like there are so many reptiles that need to be rehomed, it's actually insane. But yeah, I mean, this is like the picture perfect leopard gecko. So what I was gonna do was use him as the example. It is a he, right? I was gonna use him as the example of the peak healthy leopard gecko for a series of leopard gecko care videos. I never got to it because I realized the reptile thing was not gonna work. So I was like, all right, I'm not doing a leopard gecko care guide. I don't know what else to say about this leopard gecko, but he already has an owner. He's just going to my friend who is better with animals than I am, so we don't gotta worry about him ending up in a bad spot. But I do have a second leopard gecko, and he does not look as good. He's still kind of messed up. He got a whole video dedicated called Restoring a Blind Leopard Gecko's Vision. The goal of the video was by the end, he would be able to see clearly, but he still cannot see. I think he's just cooked, basically. So this leopard gecko, I did not mention before, but I actually got him from Craigslist. That's right. I went back just like the olden days, whipped out my, I was gonna say wallet, but whipped out my Cash App, because we are now in a modern society, and I paid $65 for this leopard gecko. Because I was like, I need an animal that is sick, but not too sick. I want him to look bad enough for a good thumbnail, but not so bad that it's gonna take years to rehabilitate him like some animals. Turns out I was incorrect about how long it would take to get him back to normal health, because it still hasn't happened, and the vet herself has spent many hours digging in this gecko's eyes to try and restore his vision. And I don't really know what to do with him, because like he's not gonna die. He does have some eye irritation, he doesn't eat very well, he fluctuates in weight a lot, he can't really shed on his own. I don't know why, like he has issues shedding. I don't know what that has to do with his eyes. You don't gotta see to shed well. Overall, he just is one of those animals that gets stuck in purgatory with us. I used to rent 2 homes just for animals. We had like 5,000 combined square feet, and we would have whole dedicated rooms just to animals who are out of quarantine, not contagious, but not nearly ready to be sold to someone as a happy, healthy animal. And he would fall into this category. But just these first 4 animals checks like every box of how I used to get animals. But yeah, he had another vet visit scheduled, but the vet agreed I could just cancel it because she was like, I don't know what else to do. And I was like, okay. And finally, the 5th reptile I got was the normal ball python. I don't know if it's male or female. I didn't bother sexing it. And he's from PetSmart. He's from the video DoorDashing a ball python. Basically every video required getting a new animal, and now I'm just kind of like have all these animals. Like imagine if I assumed 100% this is gonna work and I said yes to all the animals that were gonna come in. There would be 35 animals in my house right now, and I wouldn't know what to do with them because I can't even find anyone to take that leopard gecko. This is the first time I've handled this ball python since that video, which slightly increases the likelihood of him not being super comfortable with handling over time. But that is for the next owner to deal with. And the next owner is probably Ethan. I think he's gonna take him. So we have a home lined up for the ball python, a home lined up for the leopard gecko. The crested gecko's home is the ground, which just leaves the blind leopard gecko and the bearded dragon. So in the meantime, he eats once a week and he just went into shed, and that is his entire life. I can't believe I used to do like hour-long videos of, hey, check out all my animals. What was I possibly saying about them? I guess there were a lot of animals that I had that for years were slowly improving over time, and you get to see that progress. Think like the boa constrictor, who I got from a classroom that was just like neglected, or the Savannah monitor that I got from a basement that was just neglected. Those were two animals that were just like passion projects of fixing them. The Savannah monitor had parasites and was permanently stunted to be really tiny because there were worms in her stomach eating all of her nutrients, and she never got to grow. And then for both of these animals, they had to be tamed down. The boa constrictor was like freaking out because she had never really been handled because the teachers, but also luckily he is fine with handling, and if he does bite, it literally doesn't matter. You don't even really feel ball python bites because their teeth are so small and they are such wimpy little defenseless creatures. They're called ball pythons because they ball up. That's your fun fact of the day. Reptile education as a form of self-defense because they protect their vital organs and use their outer body as a meat shield. I really liked Tui and Ash, and I was like, why do I like wake up and be like, I wonder how the leopard gecko's doing, or I wonder how the beardie's doing, but I don't think about the ball python or the other leopard gecko. I think it's just because of that connection with the owners. It's very different when you know that there's someone in another state who tunes in and checks out what's going on and follows up. They send emails, whatever. Financially speaking, which is what the IRS saga is about, I am in the same position, but with 5 new animals, or 4, because no crested gecko. I called it a Hail Mary for a reason, and that's because it was very unlikely to work, and I don't really mind because I didn't really want to do it. Officially at this point, anyone that comments, you need to go back to reptiles to save your channel, we now have proof that that will not work. And I kind of really like that. I weirdly feel a sense of relief. Like I feel free. We got to run the experiment, and I didn't run it like lazily or low effortly. I would argue they're well produced. I like the writing I did. I like the editing. I was very selective with the music and the pacing, and I tried to make them engaging. Like I really did put my all into the videos because I freaking love making videos. I'm so deeply obsessed with creating content specifically for YouTube and specifically long form that making the reptile stuff made me realize like, wow, as long as I'm making videos, I'm basically the happiest person on earth. It's just the most fun thing ever. Over the years, what I like about it has changed. So I used to much prefer the improv, talking in real time on camera. I really liked being on camera, having my face on camera, but nowadays it's actually transitioned. My favorite part is writing and just sitting in Premiere Pro going through hours of footage. I just think that's so fun. I love when I'm like up in the attic, I black out my windows, I play music while I edit so I get to listen to music, and I'm just 8 to 12 hours straight, just clicking around, putting stuff together, just filming, just rolling the camera, seeing what happens. So much fun. And then when I get home, I get to open Premiere Pro, clean slate. I love when Premiere Pro has an empty timeline. It's starting the project is my favorite because I have this just pile of footage and then the blank canvas on the right, and it's a matter of just messing around, throwing it all together. And then finally, once I figure out what I want to express or display in the video, I get to open a blank Google Doc and I just start writing and figuring out how to turn something that happened in my life into something that's consumable and engaging. You're liking the IRS video, so thank you, I appreciate that. I guess this is kind of like an intermission video to the IRS saga before we dive back in to trying to actually get out of the situation. So in the meantime, this was just an unscripted, unplanned out video where I was like, I'm gonna sit down, talk about the dead crested gecko, and then apparently I started pulling out reptiles to show you all of my little collection. So if you wanna see what's next, you can get early access as a channel member. If you wanna see the full IRS saga, it's linked in the description. Thanks for watching.